great to be with you. Sorry I didn't shave. I was at school earlier playing the piano, trying to get a little practice in, which I try to do every day. So I hope you're having a fine day today. All is well with you. And that you had a good lunch, dinner, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Hope all is well. All right, let's get right to it. Let's talk a little bit about paper. We talked about printing, the three types of printing: engraving, lithography, typography. In the last episode, let's talk a little bit about paper. Well, the general purpose of paper, of interest to stamp collectors, in as much as stamps are often differentiated between each other because of some paper variations, is really kind of what we're going to get into a little bit today. The general purpose of making paper and the kinds of things you'll see in paper when it's manufactured. There are really two general divisions of paper. For example, you'll find one example of paper which is watermarked and paper which is not watermarked. A watermark is placed in the paper on the surface through something called a dandy roll, which when performing its function squeezes surplus water from the pulp of the paper. And throughout this process, what it does, it turns the soft mass around this pressing into a shape or a design that is actually attached to the surface of this dandy roll. And this is done for security measures. It was done in the United States in the early part of the 20th century. Well, the watermark is, or watermark paper rather, is paper that's been watermarked with any one of several hundreds of designs. You can find them all over the world in the paper. They even use it in stationery, personalized stationery, but on stamps in particular, you can find various types of watermarks used in the United States, Great Britain, in South America, in Asia. Very interesting kinds of things to see. So I encourage you to investigate that, to research it on Wikipedia or through the American Philatelic Society. A variation of the watermark is a watermark that we call the stitch watermark. And this is a watermark that consists of a band of short parallel marks caused by the stitches which join the ends of a felt belt on which the paper pulp is led from a vat. So it gives the appearance of being stitched into the paper. Those are stitch watermarks. A variety of paper that we see where watermarks are embedded in or not is woven paper or wove paper. That's paper that's just plain. It has an even texture and really doesn't have a watermark. That's woven paper or wove paper. Then we have laid paper. Laid paper generally is watermarked with a series of parallel lines you'll find in laid paper. Then there's thick paper. It's a very thick, coarse type of paper. You have thin paper, and that speaks for itself, which essentially is paper which is thinner than the ordinary types of paper that you'll find. Then there's paper that's known as pelure, P-E-L-U-R-E, pelure, which is a very thin, almost a semi-transparent type of paper. That's pelure. You have porous paper, porous, P-O-R-O-U-S, porous paper, which is a soft, spongy type of paper that if you hold it up to a light, you'll find many, many fine holes in it. So that's porous. You'll see a bunch of little tiny holes in the paper if you hold it up to light. Then you'll find ribbed paper. A ribbed paper shows parallel indentations of ribs in the paper, sometimes caused by the gumming brushes on the back of the stamp. So that's ribbed paper. Another type of paper we see is a baton, B-A-T-O-N-N-E, which is a laid type paper that shows intervals at crossed lines, almost looking like a baton, and because of their width and their intervals. You'll find hard paper, which is very hard paper an almost medium weight, I suppose. That's hard paper. Then, of course, the opposite of that would be soft paper, which is certainly the opposite of soft paper. It's of hard paper. It's soft paper. Then we have what is known as native paper. Native paper is a crude, handmade type of paper that's used for some stamps of the Indian native states that you might find. Sri Lanka, Pajampur, that's a native paper, so to speak. You'll find a paper like that in the Indian states. Manila paper is another type of paper that we see, which is a coarse paper of a kind of a brownish hue that's used for envelopes and wrappers. You'll see stamped envelopes and wrappers in the United States and elsewhere. Then there's silk paper. Silk paper which shows small silk threads in the pulp. That's also used. It was used many years ago, back in the late 19th century, by the American Banknote Company and the Continental Banknote Company to prevent counterfeiting. Then you'll find granite paper. Granite paper is similar to silk paper, only that the silk threads in granite paper are just so numerous that they give the paper an almost granite-like appearance. That's granite paper. Another type of paper we find is doubled paper. Doubled paper is paper which is made up in two layers. The upper layer, on which the stamp is actually printed, is usually a very thin layer. This paper was used for some of the very early United States stamps in order to prevent the reuse of the stamps, because of the possibility of cleaning off the cancellations. When the cancellations were rubbed, the paper would split or tear or be damaged in some kind of way to prevent reuse. The idea being that the paper would separate after it's been moistened to remove a cancellation. So that was used as a security measure. So doubled paper was used specifically, or most importantly, for that purpose. Then we have blue paper. Blue paper was an experimental paper used on some United States stamps, and it was chemically treated and gave the paper a kind of a bluish hue or cast. Then we had chemical paper. Chemical paper was paper treated with chemicals that would discolor if stamps were moistened, which was also a security measure. Various chemical papers were tried out on some of the early United States stamps, but were never really placed in general use. Their purpose was to prevent the removal of cancellations as well. Then there's quadrille paper. Quadrille, Quadrille, which is paper which is watermarked in very tiny squares. We call that quadrille. So there are the various types of paper. You'll find watermarked paper, paper with stitched watermarks, woven paper, laid paper, thick paper, thin paper, pelure, porous paper, ribbed paper, baton type paper, hard paper, soft paper, native paper, manila paper, silk paper, granite paper, double paper, blue paper, chemical paper, and quadrille paper. And so there we have it. There's the paper, and I think I'm going to go read the paper now. I haven't seen it today to catch up on the news. All right. Well, anyway, be well. And if you like, please subscribe. I'd love to hear from you. You can certainly send me an email anytime at davidsachs@davidsachs.com. Thanks so much. It's great to be with you again. See you next time.